Okay, we are going to be starting our evening by singing our national anthem. Hello, my name is Ella Jacobs. As you all know, November has been designated as the Holocaust Education Month, a time when we pause to remember, to reflect, and to recommit ourselves to the legacy and lessons of the Shoah. It's not just about history, it's about conscience. It's about what we choose to see, what some choose to ignore and forget, what we choose to stand up for, and what we choose to fight for. This evening also falls on the anniversary of Kristallnacht, the Night of the Broken Glass, or otherwise known as the November Pogrom, which happened on November 9th at 10, 1938. That night marked the beginning of the end for millions of European Jewry. Windows of Jewish shops were smashed, synagogues were burned, businesses destroyed, and people were beaten and murdered in the streets, while regular citizens, neighbors, and the world looked away. It was the warning siren, what was to come, the beginning of a genocide, one of the darkest chapters in human history. Tonight, as always, we remember the 6 million Jews who were murdered, including 1.5 million innocent children. Before the war, there were 18 million Jews in the world. 80 years later, they still haven't reached that number. There are only 15 million Jews living in Israel and diaspora. That's not just a statistic. It's an open, bleeding wound. It's why we gather today, to keep the stories alive, as we lose the last generation of survivors who lived and witnessed the Shoah. We remember Michael Smith, who just died 2 weeks ago on October the 24th, who was the last surviving Warsaw Ghetto uprising fighter. He was 99 years old. His memory, like everyone else who bore testimony to the worst of humanity, was a sacred testimony, and they all remind us what silence and indifference are never neutral. And yet, as we remember, we are seeing something deeply troubling. It is not news that anti-Semitism is rising again all around us. In our schools, on our campuses, in our streets, and online. Hate that is as old as our people has found new platforms and new disguises. The Holocaust is being rewritten, distorted, cheapened, and denied. It's being misused as classrooms, twisted in media commentary, and mocked on social media. When an influencer with 1 million followers compares the gas chambers to what's happening in Gaza, as many now do, that's not ignorant. When a Halloween floater has a copy of the Auschwitz gates as a prop, that is dangerous. It's a total moral collapse. So yes, we remember the victims, but remembering alone is not enough. We have to speak up, loudly, clearly, without apology. We can no longer afford to be the polite Jew who waits for the world to notice. That Jew was taken hostage, tortured, and died on October the 7th, 2023. The lessons of the Holocaust were never meant to make us quiet. They were meant to make us courageous and stronger. Let's be bold, courageous, proud of our rich heritage, and fearless together. May the memories of those we lost be a blessing, and may their courage be our call for action. Thank you so much. I'd like to invite our first speaker, Miriam Goldberg, our president and the daughter of the survivor, to tell us her family history.
Thank you, Ella. Good evening. I am Miriam Ziegler Goldberg, the daughter of a Holocaust survivor. My father, Louis Ziegler, is 99 years old. Though he could not be here tonight to tell his story, his voice is with us. I'm honored to share his journey, the conversations we have had in recent years, and the wisdom he offers as anti-Semitism once again rears its ugly head. My father was born in Harnica, a small farming town in Poland with about 600 Jewish families. His family was very observant and Zionistic. His father led the Stiebel, a house of prayer, during the holidays, and his parents, who valued education, fortunately had the means to send him to the public Polish school. Before the war, his life was full. He had a half-sister who emigrated to Israel, or Palestine at that time before the war, grandparents on both sides, 10 aunts and uncles, and many cousins. In the end, only my father, one uncle, and one cousin survived. The Jewish community lived amongst the Poles, some kind, others deeply anti-Semitic. Tropes persisted. Jews were either seen as burdens or cheats. Polish children repeated what they heard at home, that the Jews should go back to Palestine. When Polish youth returned from university, they brought back hatred. Still, his town was spared the worst, at least for a time. In 1939, my father had his bar mitzvah, the same year the Nazis arrived. Life changed gradually. Curfews, exclusion from school, loss of businesses, and eventually they were forced into an open ghetto. In 1942, the Nazis began liquidating the small towns. My grandfather was taken to the forest with the other men in his town, shot, murdered. Soon after, my father and his mother were sent to a transit camp. Days later, they were separated. His mother was sent to Treblinka or Majdanek, he's still not sure which, and my father was sent to Plazov. Plazov was not officially a death camp, but it was a killing ground. Inmates died from starvation, disease, exhaustion, and random execution. Amon Goth, the camp's commandant, was a sadistic murderer. My father witnessed horrors that no child should ever see. He and others were forced to dig a deep pit and bury the still warm bodies of those just murdered. On Yom Kippur, a Nazi announced that all those who wanted to eat come into the kitchen. Many rushed in. My father didn't go. The Nazis opened machine gun fire on everyone in the crowd. In November 1943, he was one of 200 people sent to a labor camp in Vorta. In December 1944, he was again among 200 deemed to work and sent by train to Buchenwald. The journey took 2 weeks, with more prisoners crammed into the cars at each stop. Few from Vorta survived. My father stared death in the face more times than most could imagine. He outran Nazis who were firing guns. He survived a stack of cement bags falling on him, bags that miraculously did not break. Had they burst, the Nazi guard said he would have been shot for sabotage. He once jumped a wall twice his height, a feat that still seems impossible to him, and he endured surgery without anesthesia. He doesn't credit cleverness, intelligence. He said he was lucky, protected by an angel. In April 1945, the Americans liberated Buchenwald. My father, recovering from surgery, lay in the hospital. A decorated soldier entered, mistook him for Polish, until my father kept pointing to himself and saying, "Jude, Jude, Jude." The soldier sat beside him for hours, ran his hand through his hair, fed him slowly, and left him with chocolates and cigarettes by his pillow. That moment of tenderness has stayed with my father all his life. After liberation, he was sent to a displaced persons camp. Life there was dangerous. Non-Jews threatened to kill the Jews. My father and another man demanded to see the American administrator. The administrator showed him his mezuzah and told them, "I don't speak Yiddish, but my bubby did." He gave them access to food, and he warned the camp, "If anything happens to the Jews under my care, I'll wipe all the non-Jews out." Eventually, my father was moved to Feldafing, joined the Irgun, a Zionist organization, served in the Jewish police. He was 18. In 1949, he arrived in Halifax, then Montreal, and finally Toronto, where his entire family was waiting at the station. He worked in factories, visited his half-sister in Israel, met my mother in Israel, Shoshana of blessed memory, married, opened a business, and he and my mother raised my sister and me. And now he has 2 married grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren. His strength and resilience continues to amaze me. As children of survivors, we carry this deep instinct to protect our parents from further pain. When anti-Semitism began to openly rise again about a decade ago, I was worried, how am I going to speak to him about this? His response, "I'm surprised it took this long." I've heard the same sentiment echoed by other survivors. My generation, we grew up in a bubble. Over the last 10 years, tiny holes began to form, but that bubble burst on October 7th. We've witnessed a surge of hatred, anti-Semitism cloaked as anti-Zionism. Our children, many with young families of their own, have been shaken by the blatant hatred against Jews and Israel. My father and I have spoken about the rallies, the fear, the urgency. His advice is clear: fight back. Do not be silent. Things are different now. We have Israel, and we have a voice. L'Ador Vador is very important to my father. For those who may not know, it means from generation to generation. This concept is deeply rooted in Jewish culture and emphasizes the responsibility to sustain tradition and collective memory throughout generations. To my generation and the next generation, Holocaust survivors helped build this city, province, and country. We must honor their strength and use every tool we have, and we must confront the ugliness and the real threat facing our future as Jews, ensure that our grandchildren are safe and secure. We are not powerless. We have organizations, advocacy groups, legal teams, and allies. We must educate our children and grandchildren to recognize and respond to anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. We must educate the people I call the middle, not those already on our side and not those who will never change, but those who are uneducated and being influenced by the media, universities, and the many hate-filled groups. We must vote wisely at every level and hold our politicians accountable. We must stand united, support Israel, speak out when we feel like we're isolated, but we must remember we are not alone. Even now, there are the righteous among us, famous heroes to me, and I'm sure to many others, like Douglas Murray, Mossab Hassan, Bill Mayer, over 90 retired US generals, Reverend Dr. Andrew Bennett, and Mark Mulrooney, and that's just to name a few, who stand and take a stand against anti-Semitism. And then there is you, the many heroes that are here tonight with us, who stand shoulder to shoulder with the Jewish community against hate. In closing, we must remember, we have been through dark times before and emerged stronger. Let us hope the remaining hostages will be returned so they can be honored by their loved ones. And let us hope and pray for better times and peace. Am Israel Chai. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam. Remembrance was a Jewish shtetl in Poland that was completely destroyed by the Nazis. Some of the survivors chose to rebuild their lives in Toronto after the war. One of them is Howard Chandler, born in 1928 in Wrzmiec-Strachowicz, Poland. He survived Auschwitz, Birkenau, and a death march to Buchenwald. Hetty Chandler, Howard's eldest daughter, and his strongest companion on 14 educational trips to Poland. I would like now to invite Hetty and Howard Chandler to speak and tell us their story.
You want to sit?
No.
He's only 97. How many people are here tonight with a Vyazhmiker background? Part of the Vyazhmiker community? Oh, quite a few. I'm so glad that you have come to join us here tonight. But it's too few. There were so many more Vyazhmikers in the very active Vyazhmiker society here in Toronto. It was a vital society, also in Israel. The numbers are dwindling, but our collective memory must stay strong and must not be lost. Vyazhmiker is a city in southeastern Poland that is surrounded by a river, by forests, and by hills. It's very beautiful. The Jewish population of Wierzbinec at the beginning of the war in 1939 was about 3,000, which meant that 1 out of every 3rd person in town was Jewish. That year, the area was incorporated into the newly established town of Stachowicza-Wierzbinec. The Jews and the Catholics lived relatively civil lives together. There was a weekly marketplace in the great market square every Thursday where goods were bought and sold and exchanged. Jewish kids went to Polish school in the morning and to Heder in the afternoon. There was relative harmony in most years. The harmony was mainly dependent on the personality of the priest and what he preached from the pulpit while he was engaged in Wierzbinec. In 1939, the Germans entered the town on September the 9th. And that was when the first ordinances against the Jews appeared. From the beginning of 1940, the Germans began resettling Jews from other towns into the town of Wierzbinec, and in 1941 formed a ghetto there. The ghetto was not enclosed by walls, it was just by streets. But the Jews knew where they could go and where they couldn't go. By December, the Jewish community grew to 3,600, and by the end of 1944, there were over 6,000 Jews in the same region, in the same ghetto. Most of them forcefully moved from other nearby towns and had to be absorbed and accommodated by the local residents, one of whom was my father's family. And as you can imagine, overcrowding, starvation, lack of heat, lack of medicine, and sickness took many, many lives. Anyone who could work was used as a slave laborer at the local munitions factories. And although it was harsh labor, it made their chances of survival relatively high. They were useful to the German war effort. The reason that there are so many descendants from Wierzbinec alive, many more than from almost all towns in Poland, was due to its location. It was so close to 3 very large munition factories, needing constant workers for the 3 shifts that they ran every day. The operation to liquidate the ghetto began on October 27th, 1942. The Jews were ordered into the market square, the same square where they held the weekly markets, and a selection was held. Workers to one side, women, children, and disabled, and those without work permits to the other side. And that day, about 2,000 people with work permits were marched off to the slave labor camps nearby, and 4,000 others were ordered onto cattle cars and taken to Treblinka, where they were murdered upon arrival, including my grandmother, my aunt, and my young uncle. These labor camps functioned until the summer of 1944, when the Germans started to liquidate them in July. Most of the prisoners were taken to Auschwitz-Birkenau, including my father, my grandfather, and my eldest uncle. Here in Toronto, in 1934, the Wierzbinec Friendly Mutual Society was established, providing free loans, free access to doctors, financial assistance to members when illness or other emergencies struck, cemetery plots, social interaction, and they undertook fundraising to send money, clothing, and medical supplies to Wierzbnik. After the war, the Society arranged whatever assistance possible in helping to bring survivors to Canada and to help them become established. The Society continued to have Sunday lunches, which I remember attending, and I'm sure that some of the others here remember attending the Sunday lunches, and convened many special social events to keep the Wierzbnikers together. And this went on till just a few years ago. It seemed only a few years ago. The Society still exists today under the auspices of Beth Emeth. My father, Howard, became the longest-standing president of this society. It's my honor to introduce you to my dad, Howard, and he will take any questions you have. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
Hi. First of all, I wanted to thank you for myself, I'm sure from everyone else here, for being here today and telling your story. Secondly, I would like for Howard to let us know how he feels that what is happening today is different than what happened when he was a young man.
How do you feel about what's happening today compared to what you felt was happening when you were a young man?
In the Jewish tradition, remembrance is a responsibility. And this is mostly what we came here to do, is to remember those that had nobody to remember them. And at this day and age, compared to things were then, and when I was a small boy then, during the war, it seems very similar. And I feel that here in Toronto, in America and in Europe, the Jewish community has been betrayed. We thought, or we were under the impression, that we had friends. Everybody needs friends. If you want anything done, you cannot do things on your own or by yourself. We need friends, and this is what we have to do. We want to make sure that when you go down the street, you don't have to look backwards to see who's behind you and what is going to happen to you, who is behind. We are not going anywhere. The people who demonstrate on certain ideas that they are being impressed on, it's frightening, absolutely frightening. The young people go out and have what to say. Everybody has a right to say what they have to say. But whatever they have to say has to stop in front of your nose. And my way of thinking, we have to defend ourselves. We should not do it. We should not be afraid to do it, even if we get a bloody nose. And it's absolutely frightening, especially when you have young children and you are afraid of them. We lived our lives. We have not much to lose anymore. But our children, they shouldn't have to grow up in a society where they have to be afraid of their neighbors, of their friends, of their leadership. Last January, I accompanied Justin Trudeau to Poland, and I had some times with him, And I explained to him what we expect of our leadership. He was a nice human being, Justin. He listened. And I believe, I'm not so sure if I was influencing him or not, but when he came back, he allocated $4 million to the security of Jewish institutions. We need people like that. But apparently now our leadership is lacking. I have no confidence in the present leadership of this country. And I don't know if I'm allowed to speak politics in a synagogue. And this is what we are up against. What is happening in the Middle East, it doesn't escape anybody, including ourselves. Our daily lives are limited, in a sense. They are threatened. We should not be afraid. We're not going anywhere, and they should know that. And what the other people had to say here, I will have to repeat. Times were hard. People were being murdered innocently. These were then the people. We were hoping for a better world. It happened for a short time. It didn't continue until it showed its ugly face again recently. Recently, I mean, since what happened in Gaza. If you have any questions. Thank you.
Maybe you can tell them about the trips that you take to Poland with educators for the last 14 years.
Yes, for the last, I belong to the Holocaust Center in Toronto. And the Holocaust Center had a roster of speakers, and we made ourselves available to speak to school children that were brought to the center to address them. And this is what we did. Occasionally, I used to get called to go and speak to a Jewish school, and I refused. I thought Jewish children should know what happened to Jews in Europe during the war. This is a subject matter and was educational. Then I got myself involved with a group of people from Pittsburgh called Classroom Without Borders. Very energetic lady that leads that group, Dr. Gurr. We take educators on the March of the Living. It's not called the March of the Living. It's take whatever name you want to give the group, usually 2 busfuls of people. And most of the people, 95% of the people, are not Jewish. These are the people we have to reach. These people are teachers, school principals, educators, not Jewish. And it's very impressive when we go to Poland and we go to Beth, and we have an audience with a mayor who's very cooperative. And with a group like this who are not Jews, I can say things that I would not dare say to the Polish people had I not had them backing me up. And we were very successful, and every year or every time we go to Poland, we have a trip to our hometown, we have a ceremony at the Jewish cemetery. It was declared a national monument, protected by the government. And we try to integrate the children that come on the trip, but we say that it only takes adults. A percentage of the people are students, and we try to have them interact with the Polish students. when I go back to my hometown, the people there never saw a Jew. They live in Jewish houses. They don't know who the real owners of these houses are. So we try to educate them. And this is the purpose that I keep going there and keep repeating there. It's very interesting. We had an audience with the Bishop of Pittsburgh. Very impressive. He lives in a palace. It was something outstanding. And he contributed $50,000 to the organization, so some of his Catholic students can join us on this trip. So we do something, hopefully, that we will have friends and speak on our behalf in places where we are not able to do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hattie and Howard. What a blessing it is to have a survivor. The actual survivor here should live and be gesund till 120. As we all know, what Nazis did to those who stood on the right side of history, we all know what happened. The brave and courageous men and women who protected those that couldn't protect and defend themselves. Nazis would eliminate the entire family if they were found out to be that they were hiding the Jews. They would be tortured and killed and made an example for others. 28,000 people from 51 countries did it anyway. They smuggled children out of the danger zones to safety, hid Jews in the attics, barns, under the floorboards, printed fake documents. Some lucky ones were miraculously taken off the trains that were heading into the death camps. Those heroes, they risked everything. Do you know why? Because they had conscience. Because they valued human lives. They chose not to look away. They chose to help and stand up for what is right. Those were the righteous among the nations. I am so honored to introduce the Honorable Elizabeth Quinlan, a granddaughter of the righteous among the nation.
None is too many. That is the infamous response made by a high-level Canadian immigration official when he was asked in early 1945 how many Jewish people would be allowed entry into Canada after the war ended. By then, there was no doubt about the horrible atrocities that Nazi Germany had perpetrated against the Jewish people. But his answer was, none is too many. That was not the first time that Canada had refused to help with the plight of the Jewish people. In the late spring of 1939, before World War II began, the MS St. Louis, a German ocean liner with over 900 Jewish refugees, sailed to Cuba, then the United States, and then Canada, seeking to be allowed to land. Canada refused, as did Cuba and the US. That voyage has aptly come to be known as the Voyage of the Damned. Why would Canada not open its doors to help those suffering such unspeakable atrocities? What did Canada have to lose? Many people within and outside of government tried to convince the government of the day to help, but interviews of Canadian immigration officials undertaken after the war show entrenched anti-Semitism by some higher-ranking officials. And the government recognized that it would not have been politically popular to allow any refugees, let alone Jewish refugees, into Canada at that time. It seems that in Canada and elsewhere, political expediency won over a much-needed expression of empathy, and that anti-Semitism won over a much-needed expression of humanity. Why am I outlining this history for you? This history of which you are all too aware. This history that many of you know about not from books, but because of the direct impact on you or those you love. This history that is sadly repeating itself. I am reminding you of Canada's tragic inaction to underscore the empathy and humanity of my grandparents, who could also have done nothing. My grandparents lived in a small town in the southern part of the Netherlands when Nazi Germany invaded their country in May 1940. 5 of their 7 children were still at home, ranging in ages from 11 to 17. Their second eldest was ill and died only months after the war ended. Mincha, my mother, was a 14-year-old twin. And due to the unsafe situation in Arnhem, where their eldest daughter lived, and where a little Jewish girl named Annie Mueller was born, my grandparents had taken in their 1-year-old grandson, Willie. It would have been so easy for my grandparents to turn their backs on helping anyone in these horrific times. My grandfather had a business to try to keep going. Food was often scarce. My grandmother had so many mouths to feed without adding another. On top of this, their town was under siege, with German patrols all around them and bombs hitting their home. They hid in ditches to shelter from German bombs and saw their neighbor lose his leg. How easy it would have been to say that we have enough on our plates. Let's just try to get through this and keep our family safe. But instead, at huge risk to themselves, to their children and grandchild, they took in 2.5-year-old Annie. Annie was in poor shape. She had been in 2 homes before coming to my grandparents, living in an attic. She was afraid of everything, even birds. My grandparents took Annie to a doctor and nursed her back to health, helped her overcome her fear of the world, and made her part of their family for over 2 years. My grandparents and my mother and their siblings had to hide the fact that Annie was Jewish, but they could easily have been found out and turned into the Nazi authorities. Their neighbor was a Nazi. My grandmother's sister and her family, who lived in a nearby town, were Nazis. What harm could have come to my grandparents, their children and grandchild, if they were found to be sheltering a Jewish girl during the war? You've already heard from another speaker. Could they have been killed, sent to a camp? Who knows? And yet they took that risk and showed their humanity, their courage, their empathy, and their compassion. What did they have to lose? I would say everything. My grandparents never spoke, at least to me, about this act of valor. I happened to hear about Annie when my mother was telling me about the war. I asked my mother why she didn't try to contact Annie or Annie's parents, or why she didn't contact a Holocaust Remembrance organization to share what my grandparents had done. My mother's reaction was, "Why? It was just something we did. Anyone would have done it." To her, it was nothing heroic. But it isn't something that just anyone would have done. It was dangerous. It was an act of heroism that until recently was unrecognized. The courage that my grandparents showed is the type of courage that multiplies. Other people see that such courage is possible and feel empowered to act. It is said that saving one is saving many. And my grandparents saved Annie, and then her 3 sons, and all of her descendants. There is a postscript to this story of courage. In March 2024, my family was contacted by Yad Vashem, inquiring if we were related to Emericus and Anna Maria Tyson. Annie had contacted them so that my grandparents could be recognized and honored. Thus began our path forward in acknowledging and celebrating the actions of our grandparents. And we are honored that in June of this year they received the award of Righteous Among the Nations from Yad Vashem and the State of Israel. And then a postscript. After that ceremony, I was able to start a dialogue with Annie. Annie remembered my mother. She told me that during a bombing, Mincha put her in the ditch, lay on top of her, and pulled a bicycle over the 2 of them to protect them. My mother hadn't told me about this. Annie told me of the antics she and my cousin Willie had gotten up to. She talked of how her parents had bicycled around the countryside for many weeks after the war ended, trying to find her. The resistance had broken down, and her parents did not know where she was or how to find her. And she told me how her parents stayed with my grandparents so that she could become comfortable with the parents she didn't remember, and so she could get to know her new baby sister. Annie and I have become friends. We talk regularly. She is an artist. One of her paintings hangs in the City Hall in Arnhem, the city her parents fled during the war and returned to after, only to find their house empty of everything. Everything, that is, but the Jewish star that her father had removed from his coat when he, his wife, and Annie went into hiding. Annie has shared her artwork with me. Her paintings are powerful and evocative of her suffering and grief. Many underscore the trauma she has experienced and continues to experience. Annie has told me what life has been like for her since the Second World War, of happy times when she would return to visit my grandparents, and of unhappy times too. Annie lived a number of years in Israel, years that were an embattled and unsafe time. She has suffered much loss. She is saddened at the state of the world now and the anti-Semitism that current events have brought to the forefront. She is shocked at the reaction of people she thought were her neighbors and friends. I am honored and blessed to call Annie my friend, and I am very proud of what my grandparents did. The humanity, compassion, empathy, courage, and selflessness that they showed. I hope that my grandparents have instilled in all of their grandchildren and in me those attributes that we might show that courage and spread that compassion in a world that so desperately needs it. Thank you.
It is my pleasure and honor to introduce our next speaker. Adam Hummel is a local lawyer, writer, and active member of the Jewish community. He currently serves on the board of directors of Bialik Hebrew Day School, is co-founder of OutsmartingAntisemitism.com, an active member of Jewish Diplomatic Corps of the World Jewish Congress, is a fellow at Boundless Israel based out of Boston, and is the lead writer of Substack called Catch, Jewish Canadian Ideas. If you haven't subscribed, please do. It's a wonderful source of information. He recently published a book titled Essays from Afar, documenting the first 700 days of the Gaza War from abroad, which is available on Amazon. Adam is married to Jeanette, with whom he has 3 gorgeous children. Adam?
This week's Torah portion, Chaye Sarah, the life of Sarah, has always been my favorite. It's partly because it's deeply meaningful, and for the last 8 years or so, because my daughter's name is Sarah. Every time I read this portion, I'm reminded that our ancestors' stories are not just ancient. They live in our homes and in our families. They live in our children. But I also love this parsha for another reason. Because it describes the moment when Abraham buys the cave in which to bury his beloved Sarah, Ma'arat HaMachpelah in Hebron, the very first piece of land ever purchased by a Jew in the land of Israel. That simple act, a deed, a contract, a burial site, cemented our people's claim to the land forever. It was quiet, dignified, and irreversible. And yet the Torah portion that celebrates the life of Sarah actually begins with her death. The paradox here is intentional. It forces us to ask, what does it mean to live a life that continues to speak after death? Now, Sarah dies and Abraham mourns her, but he doesn't remain paralyzed by grief. The Torah says, Vayakam Avraham me'al pnei meto. Avraham rose from beside his dead. He spoke to his neighbors, he bought the land, and he buried his wife. He got up, he acted, he built permanence out of loss. And is that not the Jewish story? Again and again, our people have faced destruction and responded by creating something lasting. From the ashes of the Shoah, the Holocaust, to the rebirth of the State of Israel. From exile to return. And from despair to determination. We are the children of Abraham. We are still standing up, still building, still buying back our future, one generation at a time. For nearly 80 years, Holocaust remembrance has centered, rightly, on memory. The 6 million names, the faces, the silence of their absence. But perhaps our generation is ready to now take the next step, from memory to meaning. Because Chayei Sarah teaches us that remembrance alone is not enough. Abraham's response to death was not paralysis, it was purpose. We honor the dead not only by remembering how they died, but by ensuring that their lives continue to speak through how we live. Through how we raise our children, through how we defend truth, and through how we build Jewish life that refuses to surrender to despair. These last 2 years, that message has felt especially close, because once again we've been forced to face that same paradox of life and death, this time in our own days. October 7th reminded us that evil never disappears. It only changes form. The massacre tore through our sense of security. It reopened wounds that we thought had healed, and it brought back the unthinkable, the unbearable. And yet, just as after the Shoah, we rose again. We rallied, we rescued, and we rebuilt. We carried the names of the murdered and the hostages on our chests and in our hearts, and we said, we will not vanish into grief. We will live. And today, Hadar Golden was returned home after over 4,000 days, leaving 4 hostages remaining in Gaza. Meni Godard, Rav Gvili, Ran Gvili, Dror Or, and Sutisak Rinthalak. Now that is Chayei Sarah in our time, not a story of loss, but one of legacy. Now the life that continues to speak after death is one that insists on meaning. It speaks when a survivor rebuilds a family. It speaks when a child learns Hebrew in a free land. It speaks when a Jew walks around proudly wearing a Magen David. It speaks when a parent names their child Sarah, so that her name and her story will never fade. Now, we often say never again, but those words are not just about preventing murder. They are about ensuring a life worthy of remembrance. Never again must mean forevermore. Forevermore schools. Forevermore Torah. Forevermore Jewish laughter in playgrounds, and forevermore Hebrew spoken freely in our cities and in our homes. Forevermore mezuzot on doorposts that no one dares rip down, and forevermore pride in what we are and in the story that we refuse to let the world forget. Forevermore courage. Now, when Abraham purchased Ma'arat HaMachpelah, which is today called the Cave of the Patriarchs because of who was subsequently buried there, he wasn't only buying a burial plot. He was buying continuity. He was declaring that even in death, the Jewish people will plant roots. Even in mourning, we will build. And even when the world says that it's over for us, we say, we're just getting started. And that same spirit drives us today. After the Shoah, we returned home. When we couldn't, we built new ones out of necessity. We weren't forever refugees after our displacement. We planted new roots and began again. We enabled the societies in which we settled to thrive. After October 7th, we reaffirmed our bond with Israel more fiercely than ever. We marched and we fought and we bled and we put our jobs and our livelihoods and our friendships on the line for a country and a people that we love. Once again, we stood in Abraham's shoes, or sandals, and said, this land, this life, this covenant, it is still ours. But continuity isn't only about land. It's about identity. Because survival without soul is just existence, and that is just never who we've been. After the Holocaust, the Jews didn't simply rebuild homes. We rebuilt entirely our sense of who we are. We created art again. We wrote music again. We argued in cafes again. We built synagogues where ashes once fell. We sent our children to Hebrew schools so they'd learn not just how to survive, but how to thrive, how to live a beautiful Jewish existence. We took the lessons of the Shoah and we incorporated them into the next stage of our existence. Jewish identity after the Shoah was an act of rebellion. It was a refusal to let Hitler define us by our deaths instead of by our lives. Every wedding, every bar or bat mitzvah, every Israeli flag that's waved in the wind was a declaration that we are more than what was done to us. And now, after October 7th, we're being called to make that declaration again. We're called to remember that Jewish identity is not just forged in tragedy. It's sustained through joy, through faith, and through stubborn hope. It's found in lighting Shabbat candles, even or especially when the world feels dark. It's found in children singing Am Yisrael Chai on playgrounds that used to be shelters, in those same children putting their hands on their hearts and singing Hatikva in school auditoriums around the world, vowing to remain free people in our homeland. It's found in our instinct to build even when that building hurts. So each generation faces the same question. Will we be the Jews of memory or the Jews of meaning? Because being Jewish has never been just about survival. It's about renewal. It's about taking those broken tablets and carving the covenant again. And it's about turning mourning into movement and grief into growth. And there are things that we can do right now to live that renewal. We can show up at synagogues, at rallies, in classrooms, and in conversations where the truth about Israel needs a voice. If we're not yet comfortable being that voice, we can pursue an education and learn something new about Jewish life and our role in it. We can mentor our youth so that they know that pride is not naive but necessary, so that they know that they have a role in their Jewish lineage and that they are part of our story. And that role includes being a Zionist, supporting Israel, finding the beauty in Jewish life and living it. And we can keep giving our time, our words, our resources to rebuild the kind of Jewish future that our grandparents only dreamed of. If you look around, we're only about halfway there. When the world watches to see if we'll shrink, we must answer by expanding our schools, our community centers, our courage, and our families. Now in Israel, there has actually been a statistical baby boom since October 7th, with a 10% increase in births between September and November 2024. Those reporting on this trend attribute it to a historical pattern in Israel of increased fertility and births after wars, calling it a sign of resilience and hope, tikva. That is what Israelis have apparently always done, with baby booms following almost every significant conflict in Israel's history, including in 1968 and 1974. That's not just countercultural, that is remarkable. And when hatred tries to silence us, we have to reply not with fear, but with song. When others try to define us by the graves of our people, we have to respond with the squeals of our newborn babies and the laughter of our children. We study, we write books, we make speeches, we are heard. That is our defiance, and that is our faith. So when we speak of Chaye Sarah, or life after death, we're not only speaking of our ancestors. We're speaking of every Jew who dares to live meaningfully, Jewishly, and proudly after the world says that they shouldn't. And we pay tribute to those who have stood alongside us, our allies and our friends and our supporters who have been here along the way. But we here today have an important role to play. Chaye Sarah reminds us that the true measure of a life is not how it ends, but what it sets in motion. Sarah's life continued through Abraham's resolve, through Isaac's faith, and through every generation that carries her name. For every Rebecca, Leah, Rachel, and every Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph, born both then and today. The 6 million who perished in the Holocaust, and the Jews that we lost on or since October 7th, they live on not only in our memories, but in our determination to live with purpose, to live Jewishly, to live boldly, to rise as Abraham did after each fall. So tonight, as we remember the dead, let us also honor the living and commit ourselves to being worthy heirs of those who could not continue their stories. Let our lives speak with theirs. Let our love of Israel, our Ahavat Yisrael, our Zionism, our faith, and our courage echo through the generations. Because the story of the Jewish people is not one of endings. It is the story of Chaye Sarah, the life that speaks after death. Thank you.
We're now honored to show an excerpt of a documentary that's called Dying to Live, produced by our next speaker, Reverend Majid El-Shafi.
Reverend El-Shafi is an Egyptian human rights activist whom we are privileged to have with us today. A convert from Islam to Christianity, Reverend El-Shafi was forced to flee Egypt after being severely tortured and sentenced to death for his conversion. Before his exile, he sought to work within the Egyptian system to reform the country's human rights regime. But since that time, he has obtained significant knowledge and insight into the dynamics of persecution and has established 2 human rights organizations through which he advocates for religious minorities globally. He advocates regularly on behalf of Christians and Jews, on the Falun Gong, Baha'is, Ahmadiyya Muslims, and the Uyghurs in China, having recently received the Raoul Wallenberg Citation for Moral Courage. Please have a look.
The first thing I realized just immediately was, that's it. She's dead.
I prayed to God and I said, please God, I don't want to die. Not like this.
My assumption is that she knew that she's in a horrific situation, but she didn't want to make her mother worry so much.
She told my mom that we were ambushed, the driver is dead, and I was shot on my arm, and if no one will come to rescue me, I'll die.
I was feeling like I'm wishing for my beautiful daughter. I was praying for her to die.
And at the last 10 minutes of the conversation, it's only the terrorist speaking. And just like that, Romy was vanished, like disappeared from Earth.
It's a shock. It's like somebody stole from you your heart. Great shock.
My name is Reverend Majid Shafi. I'm the founder and president of One Free World International. I'm not an Israeli, I'm not a Jewish, I'm not a Palestinian, and I'm not a Muslim. I am a human being. I am Egyptian background, and I'm standing here in front of you with the massacre of October 7, the worst thing that happened to Israel and to the Jewish community since the Holocaust, have to be addressed. As an Egyptian, we are the traditional enemy of Israel. From the time of the pharaohs, all the way to Yom Kippur War. I stand in front of you as a defender of Israel. My questions will be tough, will be touching on some of the memories, so I really apologize in advance. Tell me what's happened October 7, 2023.
My brother went with 4 of his friends to the Nova Festival. He went there again to celebrate, to dance, to have fun, to celebrate brotherhood and peace, and meet people from all over the world.
2 of my friends, they called me and they said, oh my God, you're in Israel. We make a party, a big party. It's the Nova Festival. You need to come. And I said, okay, it's a good idea. We arrived to the party on 1 p.m. And until 6:30 in the morning, it was the best festival I was. We go to dance.
For me, October 7th started like a regular day. It was 6:30 in the morning, and we woke up by the alarms.
We woke up at 6:30 a.m. and there was sirens. So in Israel, we know that we have to run to the bomb shelter.
Like almost everyone in Israel, we woke up on October 7th to sirens.
And we went back to sleep because a missile attack is not enough a reason to stay awake.
6:30 in the morning, they start with the rockets.
מה זה לצאת לשם? מה קרה? אין פה מרחב מוגן, יאללה, לצאת. מה זה אין מרחב מוגן? יואו, אבל אנחנו לא רוצים למות עכשיו. למה דווקא עכשיו?
They stopped the music and they said everybody need to go out from this area. People start running and hearing a shotgun.
Everyone started checking in to make sure people were okay. And initially, everyone said, we're good, we're in our bomb shelters.
And when we woke up, we started getting messages and videos.
My mom immediately texted my brother to see if he's okay because we knew that he is in a danger zone.
But very quickly, that changed. And I mean, within a half an hour to, we have a red alert on the kibbutz.
I started seeing the videos that people sent me, and I saw one of them was of a Jeep getting in with terrorists on it.
He texted, there's been shooting on us, the party is over, we're running to the vehicle.
And the next messages were that they heard Hamas in their homes. They heard their belongings being overturned and broken, and they could hear gunfire.
For me, seeing this, the first thing I thought was, this must be fake. No way that this is real. They're just, messing with us.
They started to shot all over the car, and we started running back to the Nova. In this time, I don't understand what happened, but I saw the terrorists, and everybody screamed, and everybody in panic and stress. And sorry.
They could hear Arabic, they could hear Allah Akbar, and they began hearing their neighbors being killed.
And my mom continued asking, "Are you okay? What's going on?" And by 7:43 a.m., the connection lost. We felt helpless, completely. We didn't know what to do.
حماس وهم كانوا بيرتكبوا اكتوبر 7 كانوا بيصوروا، كانوا بيعملوا حتى في الاعلام العسكري بتاعهم لايف ستريم اللي هو يعني في الانترنت بيذاعوها علنا
100%.
هل لو انت يعني في ناس النهارده يقول لك اكتوبر 7 ما صار، حتى يعني هذا ما صار، هذا كله بس بروباغندا اسرائيليه. هل انت مقتنع ان اكتوبر 7 حصل ولا ما حصل؟
أكيد حصل، على شوف بالتلفزيون، أكيد ما حصل، أكيد حصل.
We know that Hamas, they came equipped with all those GoPro cameras and filmed in real time in their cameras and in their smartphones and broadcasted all the atrocities that they were doing in real time. So this was probably the most recorded war crime in history of humanity.
I went down on October 9th and delivered 500 bags of food in Sderot. There were still bodies out, there was burning vehicles. You could see the destruction. It looked like an apocalyptic film.
2 weeks ago, IDF unit called me and they said, "We are inviting you to come and watch the raw images video, 47-minute video." I went, I saw the video. Every single terrorist of Hamas, when he was doing massacre, they would never use the word of Free Palestine. They never slogan, never chanted Free Palestine. They never say the word of Free Al-Aqsa. No. They even never say from river to the sea, Palestine will be free. No. The only word I experienced from their mouth, every single activist of Hamas, where they were murdering the children, they were shooting the bullets into the private parts of the females, or they were raping, the only one word coming out of their mouth, which was Allahu Akbar.
الله أكبر والعزة للإسلام والمسلمين تمكنوا من رقابهم المجاهدين والمقاتلين. طاهر يا حاج.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. هاي جثث الكلاب، هيهم هاي جثث الكلاب. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر.
October 7 took place. When you received this news, how was your feeling as a mother, as a Muslim, and as a woman, and as a human rights activist?
October 7th revolutionized the way I think. I knew that there was evil, but October 7th just showed the world, and me especially, as a grandmother, as a mother, as a woman, as a Muslim, as an activist, as a human being, everything that could ever be wrong.
I didn't think it could happen. It was beyond any imagination of, we've seen what the enemy has done to Israel, can do, has tried to do. This was far beyond. It was pure evil. I can only listen to parts of it at a time. I have to kind of shut down, and I have a huge amount of empathy for everyone involved, and the ones who don't know if their families are alive, their kids are alive, or their family members are alive.
What's your message to every Israeli father lost his son, his daughter, his brother in the massacre of October 7th?
There is no pain greater, and there is nothing that I or anybody else can do about that pain. Nothing, nothing. I would give everything I will ever have ever had to ease that pain for them or for me. But don't give in to hatred. In the memory of your child, don't give in to hatred. Defeat the ideology, but not the people. Kill the ideology that killed your child, but don't kill the people.
To the Hamas leadership, I want to say thank you. Thank you for uniting the Jewish people. Thank you for activating them. If there is one thing that you didn't learn yet, that when the Jewish community get attacked, they get activated. From the time of pharaohs all the way to the Nazis. There is one thing that the world tried to do over and over again, is to destroy them, break them, but somehow they always rise again because they know that God is with them. If there is one thing I like to tell Hamas, thank you for proving to us that after every night there is new morning carrying new day, after every storm there is sunshine, and after every persecution there is victory. Thank you for proving to us you can kill the dreamers, but no one can kill the dream.
Could you please help me welcome the most amazing person, Reverend Majid Al-Shafi.
Thank you all for having me. If you don't mind, and if you are able, please stand with me for 1 minute silent prayer for the victims of the Holocaust and October 7 and every Jewish person died in a terror attack. Please join me in a silent prayer. 1 minute. Thank you. Please sit down. Why do we need to remember the Holocaust? On what ground do we need every year to be sad and remember the sad parts and to be always in agony every year? Why do we need to remember the Holocaust? We need to remember the Holocaust because in the absence of light, darkness prevailed. We need to remember the Holocaust not just because yesterday, but because tomorrow. We need to remember the Holocaust to ensure that we will stand strong and firm when the next attack will happen. You have to understand, it is important that we understand that this darkness, we are the light for this darkness. When the history will not remember the words of our enemy, but will remember the silence of our friends. The only way to defeat this enemy, this hatred, this darkness, is by us standing up in unity and not allowing anything like this to happen again. And I'm not here to talk to you about October 7. I think the video was good enough. I am here to talk to you about the ceasefire. If you are sitting down right now thinking under any circumstances that this is a real ceasefire and our lasting peace, you are naive or stupid. We have to understand that 3 hours after the ceasefire, 3 hours after the declaration of the ceasefire, if you are a Hamas leader, what the first thing you will do? You will go help your people, right? You will go get them food or medication or something. The first thing that Hamas did after the declaration of the ceasefire, that they collected 300 soldiers and went to the north of Gaza and killed 50 another Palestinian from another family. Because this family was start to create a force. So they decide that they should be the only force in Gaza, that nobody can replace them. So 3 hours after the ceasefire, they collected 300 fighters and went to inside of Gaza and killed another 50 Palestinians. Include a journalist from Al Jazeera, Saleh Gawafri, something like that. They killed a journalist, but you don't see the media reporting about that. I am with the people that demonstrating outside. I am with them. When they say free Gaza, I agree with them, but let's free Gaza from Hamas. Let's free Iran from the Iranian regime. Let's free Lebanon from Hezbollah. Let's free Gaza from an organization that did nothing but to stole the resources of their own people, that put their people in harm's place, that stole, killed every opposition, have no rights to their own people, while their leadership in Qatar sipping on champagne every night. Well, now in Qatar they are underground. Even in Qatar they are scared, so that's good news. Today, these people that are demonstrating everywhere, even after the ceasefire, failed to respond to one simple question: where have you been on the genocide and the massacre that's taking place in Sudan right now? Where are you from the human rights abuse that every woman and every opposition feeling in Afghanistan right now? The Uyghurs in China. Where have you been when Ahmad al-Shara, a terrorist, and ISIS become the president of Syria, and today, as me and you talking right now, killing Christians, Druze, and Alawis in Suwaida. And what a disaster that the American president can meet with him and call him attractive man. My behind is more attractive than him. No, I'm serious. And don't you take it out of the tape. I want to leave this in. Ahmed Shara that he's right now in Washington, and tomorrow he will meet Donald Trump in Washington, D.C. Tomorrow. How come Ahmed Shara can be accepted in the European Parliament, in the UN, while Netanyahu is the criminal that's wanted by the International Court of Justice? But the truth and the reality that today we have to understand that we are united not just by our values and principles, but we are united because also we are facing the same enemy, the enemy of freedom. There was two different kinds of anti-Semitism, the old anti-Semitism and the new anti-Semitism. The old anti-Semitism was very clear: kill the Jews, hate the Jews. That's Hitler. The new anti-Semitism is not about the Jews anymore, it's about Israel. It's the same speeches. But here is the truth. Is Israel above criticism? Of course not. They tell you, you put two Jews in one room, you have three opinions. Israel is a country like any country. They will do the right, they will do the wrong, there is mistakes will take place. But it is anti-Semitism when you take from Israel two things: the right to exist and the right to defend themselves. Today, if you are thinking that a peace is possible, I need you to consider that. Within the final prophecy, the Prophet Muhammad said, the final days, in the end of days, he said that every Jew on earth have to be killed. Now, I need to tell you something. If a white man stood here and said what I said, tomorrow they would call him racist. It's a good thing to be brown in Canada, quite honestly. But this is really one of the final prophecy in Islam, that every woman, child, man have to be, every Jewish have to be killed before the judgment day, to the limit that the rocks and the trees will speak if the Jewish person hiding behind them. It is in the Quran, and I challenge any scholar, Muslim scholar, and it is in the Quran, that he called Jewish pigs and monkeys. Now, hear me out. Forget about the insult. I don't care too much about insulting. That's nonsense. But I will tell you why this is dangerous. It is dangerous because when you call somebody an animal, the same Hitler did with the Jews, he called them cockroaches. When the Muslims called them pigs and monkeys, they dehumanizing them, which is the preparation to kill them because it will be easier. It is very dangerous that in the Quran he did not call you a human, not just out of the insult, but out of the preparation that they have in mind to end every Jewish life. And how we can reward the terrorist organization, how we can reward an ideology that we have to fight and we have to face head on. By the Prime Minister of Canada to stand up recognizing the Palestinian state. This is the worst, and I know that the event is not political, I get it. But when you are recognizing Palestinian state, you are doing nothing but rewarding the terrorists for their crimes, and you tell them, do more and I will reward you more. It is a shame that today we stand up as a Canadian government recognizing the Palestinian state. Dear friends and family, as much as we see the darkness, we also see the light. The very fact that there is an Egyptian standing here with you, this is a light. The very fact that we stand here together, fighting the same fight, standing beside each other, this is a light. The fact that we keep winning every battle because we trust and our hope in God is a light, is a victory. The very fact that tomorrow is coming and the best is yet to come. The fact that me and you still standing. The fact that I can sit down and say, I have a Jewish brothers and sisters. The fact that I can go all the way with the IDF to Gaza and the borders of Syria. The fact that Israel can take every Druze and every Christian engaged with ISIS and take them to hospitals because they was dying. This is a light. I was in the front line with Syria with the IDF, the buffer zone, the border. And the IDF soldier said to me that there was a water pipe, and by mistake Israel hit this water pipe. And the IDF now is fixing the water pipe to ensure that the water get to the Muslim Syrians. And when I asked him what is the cost, even in the middle of the war, it was 300,000 shekel. And because they want to ensure that the water pipe is working to get the water to the people, in the middle of their own war, they was fixing the water pipe. So here is what you need to remember. Yes, our enemy have very strong army, have very strong weapon, but we have the Lord Almighty. Here is what you need to remember. After every night comes new morning carrying new day. After every defeat there is victory. After every death there is eternal life. I promise you they can kill the dreamer, but no one can kill the dream. I promise you they can kill the believers, but no one can kill the belief of our hearts. God bless you.
Let's welcome Michelle back.
Adam Hummel's speech is actually a great intro for this song. It's about taking the pain and the grief that we've all been through and using it to rise up and create a new day for all of us. Even if you say goodbye, you'll never go away. You are the rainbow in the sky, my colors in the gray. Only wish upon a star, sunshine in the day. The only song my piano ever plays. Even if you say goodbye, you'll always be around. Pick me up and take me high. même si tu dis tu ne partes jamais, te la concile et mon cerveau. Mais quand l'Afghan est gris, mon sourire sous ciudad, rayon dans ma journée, la si beau chanson qui ma piano peut jouer. New day will rise, life will go on, everyone cries, don't cry no. Darkness will fade, all the pain will go by, but you will stay, even if you say, new day will rise, life will go on, everyone cries, don't cry alone. Darkness will fade, all the pain will go by, but you will stay, love of my life. Even if you say goodbye, new day will rise. New day will rise.
Thank you.
Since October the 7th, we all experienced shifts in our lives. We experienced anger, disbelief, loss of so-called friends and communities. We experienced an unprecedented amount of hate spewed on our streets. Schools shot at, encampments, hateful rhetorics in our streets, masked mobs, and constant demonstrations. But from all this was born something else. We became stronger, louder, prouder, and blessed with finding friends from different backgrounds and communities that will stand by you, support you, and fight for you and alongside you. We have to speak up so that our children, grandchildren, and future generation of Jews can live in this beautiful country freely and without fear. We cannot, and we will not be silent anymore. This event wouldn't be possible without the amazing, brave, and outspoken group of women that I'm so proud to be a part of. These ladies are the true warriors, our Wonder Women, and I feel very privileged to be a part of this amazing group, Canadian Women Against Anti-Semitism, or CWAA for short. Please, my girls, please, my sisters, stand up. Olga, Revi, Shauna, Talia, Slava. These are our lionesses. Loud and proud. We are honored to have so many representatives from both federal and provincial government who stand with us against all levels of hate, discrimination, anti-Semitism. Please welcome Goldie Gamari, Vince Gasparo, Michelle Cooper, Leslie Church, Roman Baber, I can't see everybody from here, Laura Smith, Anna Roberts, Miriam Pearl, representing General Council of Israel. We would like to give a huge thank you to all the allies who stand with us, shoulder to shoulder. Thank you all for coming here and for showing your support. At this moment, I'd like to introduce our new cantor, Noah Rachels, He came here from New York neighborhood, so-called Borscht Belt, timely escaped. Mind you, Toronto. Sorry. How timely, mind you, okay. We are so happy to welcome you, welcome your family here at the Beth Emeth, and have you join us on this special event. Please come up.
I'd like to begin by sharing a story. I don't know if it's true, but I also don't know if it's not true. The story goes something like this. A very observant Hasidic man in Poland was rounded up like so many others and shipped off in a cattle car. And inside one such cattle car, over the clatter of the wheels, rose the sounds of people gasping, sighing, weeping, dying. And in one car, the sound of singing could be heard. And legend has it that a Hasidic man named Azriel David Fastag was imagining himself at the Amud, at the Stender, at the prayer stand, next to his Rebbe on Yom Kippur. And he is leading the davening. And suddenly there, before his eyes, the words of the 12th of the Rambam's 13 principles of Jewish faith appeared. Ani ma'amin be'emunah shlema beviat hamoshiach ve'af al pi sheyitmamea im kol zeh achake lo bechol yom sheyavo. I believe with perfect faith in the coming of the Moshiach, and even though he may tarry, I will wait each day for his coming. It is said that there, among the sounds of sadness, horror, death, Azrieli David began to hum a quiet tune to these words. And that those there with him began to join him in singing, at first quietly, and then it grew louder and louder, and it is said the song spread from car to car, and every mouth that could still breathe joined him in singing. When he opened his eyes and noticed that everyone was singing with him, it is said that he cried out something along the lines of, I will give half of my portion in Olam Haba, the world to come, to whoever can take my song to the Modzitzer Rebbe, the Rebbe from his hometown, the Hasidic community. And two young men came before him and promised to bring the song to the Rebbe. One of them climbed up on the shoulders of the other, and they found a small crack in the roof of the train. And they created a hole through which they could jump out. They said goodbye to everyone, and they proceeded to jump off of the moving train, one after the other. It is said that one of them fell and was killed from the fall, and the other survived, taking the memory of the song with him. And he eventually found his way to Israel, and he shared this melody with someone there, who then sent it to the Modzitzer Rebbe, who had been saved by escaping to New York. And upon receiving the notes and having Azriel David's Ani Mahamim sung before him, the Rebbe said, When they sang Ani Ma'amin on the death train, the pillars of the world were shaking. The Almighty said, whenever the Jews will sing Ani Ma'amin, I will remember the 6 million victims and have mercy on the rest of my people. If you know the tune, please sing it with me.
It's now my honor and privilege to introduce our rabbi, Rabbi Howard Morrison. Rabbi Morrison is a senior rabbi here at Beth Emeth Synagogue. He prepared him. He joined the synagogue in 2000, so we have the new member of our synagogue working with the older member of our synagogue and blending wonderfully the two of them. Rabbi Morrison's been active in the Toronto Jewish community since his arrival. He served as president of the Ontario region of the Rabbinical Assembly and the Toronto Board of Rabbis, as well as serving as the chaplain to the local Jewish war veterans. Rabbi Morrison has two sons, Eli Natan and Yonah Ari. Please welcome Rabbi Morrison.
Shavua Tov, a good new week for everyone. Bruchim Habaim, welcome and thank you for coming. The weekly Torah portion is always relevant to the issues of the day. Take yesterday's portion of Vayera. God tests and even informs Abraham about the evil in Sodom and Gomorrah. Abraham is tested. Will he speak out for the innocent? Will he speak out for people he does not know? The stranger, the righteous. Abraham passes the test, becomes the father of our people, and a moral exemplar, because he speaks out against injustice wherever it occurs. This is the Jewish way. In being a light unto the nations, Israel and the Jewish people speak out and act. How often has Israel sent its trained personnel to other countries during a time of peril? How often has Israel treated the ill and the wounded from enemies of neighboring nations? Tragically and sadly, the shoe is not worn on the other foot. When the Jewish people suffered in the Shoah and lost 6 million of its own, the world was largely silent. On October 7th, and its aftermath unto this very day, the world has largely been silent. Now, normally this rabbi also would not talk politics on the bima, but since everybody else seems to be doing it tonight, imitation is the highest form of flattery. A mayor shall here, and a new mayor-elect in New York City, named Mamdani, are completely silent on the pain of our people, and even twist truth into falsehood. And I would ask, where are the other faiths that claim that they are children of Abraham? With few but noticeable exceptions, 87 years after Kristallnacht and 2 years after October 7th, the silence and false propaganda are glaring. We, the Jewish people, the nation of Israel, will continue to emulate Abraham, our forefather. We will speak out and act for our particular need and for the universal need. As we learn in Pirkei Avot, the ethics of the sages, if I am not for me, who is for me? If I am only for me, what am I? Chazak ve'ematz, Be strong and have courage. Am Yisrael Chai.
My name is Joan Siegel, and I am co-chair of the Holocaust Event 2025 Committee. The Canada I live in today is not the same Canada I was born into 81 years ago. Then Canada encouraged safe communities and all that implies. Today, Canada is shaped by social media and its influencers. Today, we live in a very troubled world. As tonight has taught us, the mission of Worldwide Jewelry is to never forget our past, pay attention to the lessons of our history, and move forward with our heads held high, moving in an upward, positive, measured, and constructive manner while determining our future. Pardon me, Rabbi, but to quote Rabbi Hillel, if I am not for myself, who will be with me? If I am only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when? The program tonight has touched all our hearts, and I thank every one of you for joining us in remembering our past and present, honoring our past and present, and looking forward to a brighter future. Thank you to Beth, Emeth, Beis Yehuda Synagogue, Apex Kosher Catering, and pardon me if I mispronounce this, the White Spitnicker Society, and Women Against Anti-Semitism for supporting our efforts. A great big thanks to Ori Watkin for his talent with videography. Ori, you are an integral part of our team. Yossi, for keeping us on track by having the appropriate images on screen and at the appropriate time. And our photographer, Jack Becker. Thank you to all the participants in tonight's program. Your stories and contributions are so meaningful, not only to you, but received by your audience with great appreciation. Last but not least, I thank my friend Ella Jacobs, who has given her all and more in researching, reaching out, and planning this evening. Her dedication, persistence, and attention to detail awes me. The term, not a stone unturned, aptly applies to her. Following Michelle Jacobs leading us in Hatikva, please join us for a reception next door in the Fishstein Hall. Yisrael Chai.
If everyone can rise if they can. Oh.